I'm Frank Vaughn. It's November 3rd, 2025, and as of this moment, the audio is working fine. I don't know from one moment to the next whether or not it will be, but I can watch the input on my screen, and from that I have learned I can know when things go awry. But that's all right anyway, because some days my mind is just swimming. There's so many things, so many interweaving parts, so many threads in the weave that it's really hard to figure out what in the hell I'm going to talk about today. What am I supposed to say? How am I supposed to tie it all together? The last few evenings I've been listening to millennial YouTubers. I've been seeking them out, mostly in their 30s, and listening to them talk about their problems, listening to how they convey those problems, listening to how they communicate. A dark generation it is. Because when you watch a video that's got 500,000 views or 1 million views, and then you spend some time reading in the comments section, you understand that all of those views, especially when the person you're watching only has 10 or 15,000 subscribers, and they've got a video with 500,000 views and 4,300 comments, and everybody's commiserating about how much they relate to the subject matter in the video, that it is indicative of at least a portion of the millennial generation that the message is resonating with, and it is dark. It's bleak. It's a lot of problems coming down on their shoulders. And I'm a millennial, or I'm a Gen Xer. I was born right in 1980. So right on the fulcrum, the passage between the two generations. So, and when I examine my life, I am at least partially millennial and partially Gen X. I'm like a mix of the two. I think I'm just a perfect hybrid of the two generations. And when I say perfect hybrid, I don't mean perfect as in I'm a perfect individual. I mean I encompass both generations and their traits in a way that's probably enough to just annoy both at the same time and satisfy nobody. At any rate, their outlook on life is fairly dark, obviously framed by the fact that the cost of living is unquestionably higher. Unquestionably. And a lot of the practical advice that they got from their parents or they got from their teachers was a false song. They were told to go to school. They were told to get these expensive college degrees, that everything would be fine. They were told that progressivism and liberalism would lead them to the promised land if they just embraced the gender equity and got enough gender degrees, everything would be fine. And none of it was true. They find themselves with 1, 2, 3 degrees, very well trained, at least according to academia, but absolutely useless in the job market. All they can do is get sales jobs. All they can do is get Walmart jobs, pizza delivery, over and over and over again. And it's not just YouTubers. People in my personal life that possess degrees of their own, working as cooks in kitchens. And I don't seek to devalue that role. All of these roles have validity in society. When I was working my farm, we're talking about menial labor. I probably made less on a per hour basis than minimum wage the entire time I was farming. And the way we made up for that was living cheap and putting in very long days. But it was very fruitful. It was very rewarding. And the fact is, it led somewhere positive and good for me. I have a family now. I have a wife. I've been with my wife for 19 years. We still talk every day. We're still very good friends. We came together as two people, two partners. And because we bent our will, and because we were single-minded, and because we worked hard, and because we lived cheap, two people together could overcome what was then building. And maybe by merit of the fact that I'm 45, and like I said, I was born in 1980, maybe the few years difference, or even the 5 or 10 years difference between me and those next in line, those younger, the people who were born in the late 80s or the early 90s, maybe that made a huge difference because I came into my working age life at a certain age. Well, a lot of the problems that we're now dealing with, which have serious consequences for our civilization and for our nations and for our people and for our communities, still hadn't materialized yet. I remember back in 2014, 2015, which seems like an age ago and yet seems like yesterday at the same time because of how things have changed since then. One of the arguments that I was making at the time privately, because I didn't really have an online presence. I don't think I had any online presence other than the global warming stuff might have started by then. But in private company, with anybody who would listen, I would wax poetic about how immigration numbers were too high and that the fundamental character and foundation of Canada was going to change and that a welfare state cannot sustain immigration at such high levels. Now, immigration numbers back then were 250,000 legal immigrants every single year. They were much better vetted towards skills and towards economic needs. The temporary foreign worker program had not taken over everything. The IMP program, which is just, when I say temporary foreign worker program, I'm just including it all. Anybody that's here that is temporary, and there's a lot of them, student visas, everything else. None of that had happened yet. That was all still in the future and was unimaginable because from the perspective of that moment, it was very clear to see at those numbers what it was going to do to the country in 10 to 15 to 20 years. And now, since 2015, we have engaged a pace of change that dwarfs even my most dour projections in 2014, 2015. We've increased the pace to, we have packed in 20 to 25 years of change in 10 years. We have overwhelmed our welfare state. We have overwhelmed our welfare system. We have overwhelmed our social structures, even our pension systems. We're told all the time are in great shape, and in a way they are. As measured in Canadian dollars, the pension system is in great shape. The problem is pensions, both OAS pensions and private pensions, are not doing a very good job keeping up with the inflation rate, the real inflation rate, not the fake number that we get that is milquetoast and watered down, but the real inflation rate, which is probably in excess of 10% in Canada per annum, or at least it has been over the last chunk of time. When I listen to people talk about their problems and they're saying that rents have increased, they can't afford to live, wages haven't kept pace, they can't afford to buy a house, and hard work's not going to change that. You see, this is where it gets tricky because they're right. They're right. The country's become a ripoff. As I've covered on this channel and, put graphs up and articles behind me and done all the source documentation and everything else, I swear to God, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter, man. It's like you can't, not the people who watch this channel, but the people I'm trying to reach. In a sense, I take you guys for granted because you're here and you're with me and we're commiserating together. But my thoughts and my concerns are always bent towards the people I haven't talked to yet. And if I do get a chance to talk to them, what am I going to communicate? What am I going to do with the 10 to 15 to 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 10 minutes they're actually willing to give me before they block me, before they demean me, before they diminish me, before the insults begin, and before the back and forth and the toxicity and the absolute decline and fall of understanding and actually having a conversation, getting into an argument. And by argument, I mean an argument free of insults where you just exchange ideas. By God, I was blessed the other day running into this 17-year-old kid. I'm assuming he's telling me the truth. I mean, I guess he could be LARPing, but the way that he communicated, the way that he typed, the words that he used, the way that it flowed, the way that he approached it, he screamed 17, or at least adolescent teenager in the upper years. He screamed that, and he screamed as a serious person. He came across as somebody who genuinely cared. I disagreed with him. I think there's a lot of things that he needs to take in, but he did it, and it didn't get toxic. And I'm telling you, it was like drinking the sweetest wine to find that out there. And again, I don't speak as the man on the mountain. I do it too at times. I struggle against it. You would not believe how many times I type something out or I go to record something and words spill out of my fingers or spill out of my mouth that I'm not happy with, and I have to go back and rework it because that urge is in me too. And the internet, this beautiful thing where all the knowledge of that humanity has ever compiled is at your fingertips. And at a moment's notice, you can learn anything you want. You can literally learn how to perform surgery, at least theoretically. I'm not recommending that you do that or anything. I'm just saying you can find out about it. You want to make something, you want to do something, it's all right there. If you want to communicate with people, every single human being that's ever been or ever is or ever was, from here on out, if the world remains as it is within reach. Excuse me. Even the rich and famous, you have a chance of reaching. Politicians, you have a chance of the zeitgeist that the people create and the maelstrom of their thoughts and opinions that they put on social media will capture the attention of decision makers. And at the very least, they will have to address it. Not here in Canada. Not here in Canada. But at least in the United States. For us Canadians up here who can watch their political theater and watch them enjoy free speech and watch them have this debate. It's a breath of fresh air. Their politicians are always responsive to what the people are saying, whereas our politicians on both sides of the aisle, you know, I'm encountering this again too, where I'm being lauded in as a PP, what is it, a PP puffer or fluffer? That I'm just promoting Pierre Poilievre or I'm just a CPC guy. I've hit a vein of that on social media lately, and it's just not true. I mean, I put the work out. My words are there, both spoken and written. There's a record of my thoughts and my criticisms and how it crosses both aisles. And still, people make widely capturing judgments about my character and my own personal opinions without doing an ounce of due diligence. And those are the people that I need to reach. Those are the ones that I need to have a conversation with. As much as it's nice to have you guys, the vast majority of you watching this, because we commiserate together. You know, we interact in the comments. I read most of them. I get emails, comments on the website, various forms of communication, and I appreciate them all. But what keeps me up at night is how do I reach the rest? Because there's another thing. With the spoken word and with communication, you only get a chance to convey one thing at a time in any given moment. So there's only one stream of consciousness that you're emitting out into the world. And your mind, or at least my mind, can hold multiple things at once. There's also always a soundtrack going on. Right now, it's the underwater level from Mario 1. Days and days and days. That's the soundtrack inside my mind along all of these other concurrent thoughts that are going on. But the point is at one given time, you can hold several streams of consciousness and be drilling down on the why of something from multiple different angles at the exact same time. Whereas when you speak, you can't do that. You have to convey a point, then a point, then a point, then a point. And no matter how you try to structure it, no matter how well you put it together, you're leaving out a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be in there. And so even the best prepared person, or a person who bends their consciousness towards trying to figure out how to communicate properly and effectively, is still at a loss to actually do so, because the response that you're getting from the person that you're talking to is always going to be informed by the way that you yourself have presented the information to them. And so their counter, by necessity, is not going to include all the things that didn't get included. And this is what leads to misunderstanding, and this is misunderstanding between two people that actually are trying to understand. They're in the minority. The majority of people, especially in Canada, millions and millions and millions and millions of people are making sweeping judgments and adopting very firm opinions and positions based on ignorance. They're not trying to understand a thing. They're trying to signal their allegiance to a team or a particular idea or even just what they're against. Remember, the primary Canadian identity is that we are not American. We don't know why that's our identity. Because in order to understand why we would be so proud of not being American, we would have to understand what it means to be Canadian. And I've never heard a definition of what it means to be Canadian ever sufficiently defined around some kind of national and cultural and ethnic identity that brings us all together. I would say we were on our way to building one. Unfortunately, from my perspective, it was under the British Crown. Back when we had the red ensign, before the flag was replaced without a vote, before the nation was replaced in 1982 without a vote, we were on our way to building something. And we abandoned that along the way, and we decided to embrace a concept called multiculturalism and post-nationalism. Now, post-nationalism came later, but politics is downstream of culture. So by default, when you adopt official multiculturalism, if you change the culture, the politics will change. And from multiculturalism rises post-nationalism, from a full-scale embracement of the theory of globalism. And this concept of free trade that started forming up in the 80s and the 1990s and the 2000s, where free trade meant that we trade our resilience, we trade our manufacturing base, we deconstruct it and we ship it overseas, and we let plebs in China and India and Bangladesh and Vietnam make all of our stuff. And to get our stuff back, which we used to make, to get it back over here, we will send the blood of our soil overseas. We will become a resource colony. We will produce raw materials. They will build and pollute their nations. They'll send us back the stuff for cheap. We will have slave labor, barely able to subsist in totalitarian societies, enable our prosperity and our so-called freedom. And that was the deal we made. And it hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out for the resilience of the civilization. It hasn't worked out for the resilience of the nation. Now, the United States has realized this, and maybe they never quite forgot it, but they've realized, and I believe they're engaging in a process of reshoring. So the dollar has to get weaker. The US dollar has to stop being the world's primary reserve currency. There has to be another system that's adopted. And that's the only way that manufacturing and the building of things can come back to the United States in the scale that it needs to if the United States wants to be resilient. We're 25 years into the so-called New American Century. Has not been going according to plan. The empire's in trouble. But in Canada, you see, Canada doesn't have a core national identity. It's actually been opposed. Now, there is a core identity that survives among several millions of people, but it's buried underneath this multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multi-racial soup, and we're taking all of these individual small-scale cultural bubbles. So we're taking, we're taking the Khalistani diaspora, we're taking the Jewish diaspora, we're taking the Palestinians, we're taking all of these other stronger national, ethnic, cultural, religious identities, and we're using government to promote each individual one in this most fragmented way. And underneath it, the core thing that actually built the nation is actively suppressed. It's racist, it's bigoted, it's all of the things that these people claim they're trying to fight, targeting the core, targeting the trunk of the tree from which all of these multicultural branches grow from. So it's really bad for us because as the screws tighten, the only thing we really have to unite around is the system. The system which has disenfranchised people, and they don't even understand it. They don't even know it. The system that has replaced the nation which we once had without a vote. And I know that there's people out there who think that's hyperbole, but it's just not. When the Charter of Rights and Freedoms came in, there was no referendum. The people didn't get to choose. When the Constitution was repatriated, Quebec didn't even sign it. The framework under which we live and we attach our identity, and I say that because the strongest points of pride that I see, and when I say pride, let me be careful. I'm talking about organized pride. I'm talking about financed. I'm talking about politically active, powerful, well-moneyed. The sources of pride in Canada are the public sector unions. And they are structured around the bureaucratic state, the system. So it's our healthcare system that we're proud of and we're trying to fix and repair and build. It's our education system, which we're proud of, trying to fix, repair, and build. And I'm saying this, there's going to be people in the comment section that are like, well, I'm not proud of that. I'm talking about the organizing principle, the most powerful forces at work in our society. This is a bureaucratic state. The bureaucracy and its extensions are the unifying principle, the core around which we are organized, because we don't have a strong national identity. We don't have a cultural identity. We don't have an ethnic identity, and we are not allowed to have a religious identity. Everything is fragmented. So the only unifying principle is the thing at the center that leeches its existence off of all the other things. Doesn't matter what they are, whatever branches of the multicultural tree, everybody at some level is paying into and a part of this bureaucratic, I don't want to use the word parasite just because I don't want to use the word. But what else do you call it? It's this extractive thing. It's this taking thing in the middle that is dependent on makers and fake money. Money printing and the constant stock division. Because if you think about money that way, whenever they print money, it's stock division. Whenever the government or the central bank issues debt, it's a stock division. It's a great way to think about it, actually. If you have a stock that's worth $1 and you divide it into two stocks, you have 50 cents, and you have 50 cents worth of purchasing power, 50 cents worth of ownership. The ownership has been halved. Whenever the money supply increases, that's what happens. Whenever government debt increases, that's what happens. It's just out of thin air. It's a stock division. At any rate, the thing that's doing the stock dividing and the thing that's literally producing nothing. And when I say producing nothing, it's not to say that there isn't, dare I say, good work that's done in these. I'm not condemning a nurse or a doctor or even an educator that's doing their job nobly. It's that because those things are valuable, but the value that they output is buried underneath the wasteful extraction that actually supports that value, that limited value production. So this nation that we live in, this post-national state, has deindustrialized, has become a resource extractive colony where foreign investment is so normalized, it's hard to reach out and find a company that's actually Canadian owned, that isn't a small company or a medium-sized company. Transnational corporates solely own Canadian resource companies that control important claims. Any kind of organized corporate enterprise that is bent towards strengthening Canada, creating Fortress Canada. This place, we produce everything we could possibly ever need and trade with the world. We have lumber, we have resources, we have oil, we have water, we have farmland and fertility, excess food out the wazoo, especially if we reorganized ourselves a little bit more towards the agrarian side and domestic production, we could be so strong. We're so vast. And we have this natural partner in the United States, which is it's perfect. It's the perfect setup. And yet we're doing everything we possibly can to torpedo it. And we're doing it because it's very profitable to the financial class. It's very profitable to the transnational corporate class that's headquartered elsewhere. It's very profitable to the World Economic Forum and the geniuses at the IMF. Canada being organized this way helps very few people at the expense of everybody else. And now we have a situation where there is a United States which is trying to change the trajectory with immense challenges. Just a word about that. I don't want to pretend that the United States is perfect. There are people out there who will convey that impression and are desperately afraid to talk about the negative aspects of the United States. Number one, the empire. Not the republic, the empire. The empire is a huge liability, and it's destroying the American people. It's the empire that's doing it. It's everything outside the United States. And the people who think outside of the United States and think about the empire is impoverishing so many, the bottom rungs of society in the United States. There are whole channels. I stay up way too late at night some nights watching Nick and Joe's Great American Road Trip, or Nick Johnson, or any number of other YouTubers out there that just tour around America and show what's happening. They got problems too. They have some crippling poverty. They also have immense opportunity for somebody who's enterprising. I don't think that changes. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place. But there's been a lot of pain. A lot of pain. And there's more pain ahead. Even if the reorganization is successful and the nationalists win out and they're able to extract America from the empire, it certainly doesn't look likely from today, there's still going to be a painful transition. But when I think of Canada and I think of Canadians, going through this painful transition to whatever's next, which is the loss of the US dollar's hegemony, which is the process of reshoring manufacturing, which is the process of rebuilding, which is the process of creating a resilient North America in a multipolar world, which can trade with the world in an amazing surplus and avoid the conflicts and the machinations of the nations of the old world. My God, why don't we all want this? It's the only thing that's going on. And like any business, the first few years are going to be the hardest. But the longer we delay getting on with those first few years, the further down the alternative path we get. And the alternative path is there is no better. The alternative path is dominion. That Canada becomes a perpetual serf colony to the world and never rises again. Dominance by China, dominance by Europe, these very anti-democratic places. Europe is not Greece of the classic times. Like it is now a totalitarian hellhole where the European Union interferes in the individual elections of member states, interferes in their policies, forces multiculturalism down their throats in a very destructive way, and wages an absolutely useless conflict through Ukraine, killing millions of Ukrainian people in an extension of their war against Russia, a nation whose energy Europe desperately needs. Again, Europe and Russia are right beside each other. The German economy is in the tank in the last 3 years. And who suffers? It's the people who suffer. Demoralized, feeling hopeless, and at least some of that being justified, probably a majority. I do think there's other problems, but since we're already at a half hour, I'm not going to get into them today. What I think when I started talking about this video, I was talking about the millennials I'm listening to, and It's not all the boomers' fault. It's not all the economy's fault. There's an attitude, a dark attitude, but that's a subject for another day. No matter what the challenges the United States faces, and they've got a lot of them, no matter what the challenges that Canadians face, and my God, we've got a lot of them. We are being managed right now. And I don't know what direction Mark Carney's an incredibly hard man to read. He's very good at saying one thing and saying another thing and making you feel bored while he's doing so. What he actually cares about, what he actually values, aside from the fact, I think he values stock returns for his blind trust. I think he values Brookfield. I think he values money. But more than that, I believe that Mark Carney believes in central banking and money. I think that is clear. He believes in technocracy. He believes in the management of people and the economy and the citizen, that there is a technocratic elite that are better suited to running your life than you are. And I think he believes that with a religious conviction. And I also believe that a lot of these politicians, by default, and a lot of these leaders, the ends justifies the means situation. So they justify lying, and they justify going about their business and telling stories and narratives and adopting the talking points, which are incomplete, and like playing the repetitive game of politics. They do so because a lot of them believe they're heading somewhere good. I don't think it's always just motivated by greed and personal power. I believe that many of them hold on to a very misguided, semi-spiritual principle that they're trying to chase. I think Mark Carney's one of them. I think he genuinely believes in the technocratic elite. But either way, we are being managed, and I worry that we're being managed in the direction of continued European and Chinese dominance. When what I'd like to see, with all the flaws and blemishes of the United States, there's plenty. Look, every time I talk about the United States and how they're the only game in town, first off, it's always associated with Donald Trump, and I constantly am reminding people that America is far more than one president. It's a concept that stretches back 250 years. The Constitution is the best we've ever done. It's a pretty cool place with some pretty cool ideas with a bunch of problems. I'm also not a Trump fanboy any more than I'm a PP fluffer. There's things that he's doing that I like, and there's a vision that I hope is genuine that I like. But just to name a couple things, Epstein, for one, it's a cover-up. It's a big cover-up, likely a cover-up for the CIA and Mossad and Israeli intelligence. The United States, under Donald Trump, is still being pulled along by Israel for Israel's ends. I mean, no other nation on earth could ever do the things to another sovereign nation and make demands on another sovereign nation quite the way the Israelis can. It's an interesting thing. I am stunned by the lack of curiosity and indeed the opposition when it comes to the Charlie Kirk assassination. No 30-06 did that. That's the baseline. You got to get your head around the fact that the bullet they claim did the job and the rifle that they claim did the job could not have done so. And there are people within the administration, I mean, if you follow the story at all, Tulsi Gabbard, DNI, they want greater clarity and they want answers, and Kash Patel's FBI is opposing them every step of the way. There are things wrong. Without parsing them all right now, there are things wrong with the Trump administration. It's not about Donald Trump. It's about geopolitics. It's about the reality of where we are on the planet and our capacity to relieve the suffering of the masses. When you see millions of people probably, but at least on YouTube, you can just keep scrolling and you can find more. There are people who are working two jobs, living in their car to survive. Now, part of that is not being willing to relocate away from where you are. A lot of people are anchored to where they are. There's opportunities all over the place. You just got to uproot and go and find them. But I digress. I mean, there's a lot of people living in their cars, not just in the United States, but here in Canada. There's a lot of people living on the street. There's a lot of bad things going on. If we want to solve those things, I perceive there's only one path to doing so, and that's creating Fortress North America. That's focusing on our domestic sphere, and our domestic sphere is a world. It's the entire new world. What an amazing thing that focusing on your home and cleaning up your home spans an entire continent. What an opportunity. A continent that literally can produce every single thing we need to be rich. Not just prosper, but be rich, be well fed, be well housed. And the only thing that stands between us and the work of building that is a mindset. It's a few different mindsets. That the system, that bureaucracy, that thing I just described of Canada, is worth hanging on to, dressed as it is in the maple leaf flag. It's not. It's disenfranchised every single citizen. Even the members of that bureaucracy are disenfranchised. No real human rights. And now, I've been meaning to talk about this for a while, but this whole BC court decision, when it comes to title of land, what bank in their right mind is ever going to mortgage a person whose land can just be given to someone else because of title claims that natives have made? Which, by the way, these bands and these natives that are making these claims that think they're winning, the reserve that they're on is owned by the Crown and they just lease it from the Crown. It's just another way to screw the people. It's just another way to steal everything we've got. What little we have, because we don't even have what we have, because we don't have property rights. We don't even have fake property rights. The charter and the flag wrapped around this rotten system. That's what Canada has. That's our core defining feature. Once we let go of that thing, then we can cast our eyes around us and go, hey, what else can we do here? How can it become better for the people? How can we give them real rights? How can we give them real hope for the future? And the answers are spread all over North America. We have to get over globalism. We have to get over ourselves. We got to get the chip off our shoulder, and we have to realize the reality of geopolitics is we live in North America. The world, the old world, and the new world. Think about that. Old, new. Completely opposite. For a reason, we live in the new world, settling affairs in North America and more broadly in South America, and doing something that liberates people. We can create a beautiful new society of prosperity where people are actually liberated. We could do it. But we got to get over so many false belief systems and delusions in order to just get there. Anyway, this is not my typical video, but it's the one you're getting today. I hope it was worthwhile. I'm Frank Vaughn. I'll see you in the next one.